You're welcome.
Hey, Cherry Creek kids. I got Brooke Harris going to talk to you about what she does, and Brooke's a former student of mine. And Brooke, have a great time talking to our kids.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Brooke Harris, and I am a pediatric nurse in Boston, Massachusetts. And for beginners, I will just share some of these pictures. I really like the picture of the family because as a pediatric nurse, not only do you deal with the kids, but you also deal with their families, which sometimes is a positive or a negative. Some families are really helpful, and some families add just a lot of extra stress. And then I also like this picture of pediatric nurses making a difference in small people. It's not only small people at the hospital I work at. We take anything from neonates up to the age of 23. So sometimes we do work with young adults. And then also I like my little flu shot guy because I think everyone should get their flu shot, especially this year, even if you're someone that doesn't believe in it years prior. So let's get started. So a little bit about me. You're probably wondering how in the world do I know Mr. Stirrup and how in the world did I end up in Boston out of all places. So this first picture you see here on the left was actually when I was a student in the class that you guys are in. And I think that was the day that we went to like the medical campus and we got to see the med students like cut open like the skull cavity to reveal the brain. So that was that day. And then the second picture was just at our senior assembly when Mr. Stirrup performed a KISS concert with our students. I'm sure he has done the same for you guys. And so after I left Chaparral High School, my goal was to go to Oklahoma State, and I thought I wanted to be a physician's assistant. So my first degree was in nutritional science with an option in allied health. And right going into my senior year, I had gone and presented research, and I found out about a nurse practitioner, and I was like, I don't know if I want to be a PA anymore. So last minute, I was like, I want to be a nurse. So I graduated Oklahoma State, got my nutritional science degree, and then I applied to Northeastern's accelerated nursing program in Boston, which was 18 months. So I pretty much got my whole nursing degree in 18 months, which really brings back some PTSD. It was super hard. I swear all I did was study. And so that's how I kind of ended up in Boston. And that is my journey of how things went. So I wanted to share a video of where I work because I feel like where I work is such a special hospital and very unique, probably to what you guys see in Colorado. And so we'll start with this video. If I can figure it out. Give me 1 second.
Got full faith in you.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay. So that is a little bit about where I work, and I feel like that video really kind of highlights it because I feel like Boston Medical Center is just a unique hospital, and I feel like the patient demographic we see is so different from what you might see in Colorado. For beginners, we do have a rooftop garden on our hospital, which I love because a lot of our families that we see come from lower economic classes, and a lot of them do have food disparities. So I feel like that is a great opportunity where we can give back and give food to our patients, and then we also use that food to prepare a lot of the meals that we do serve our patients. And then also at BMC, we really work with a lot of people that are from different cultures and might not speak English, and that is not uncommon. I swear at least probably once a shift, I have a patient that does not speak English, and actually Haitian Creole is our #1 requested service at Boston Medical Center, followed by Spanish. And I think that's really important to understand and look at is sometimes it's really hard to give medical care to someone when they don't speak English. And sometimes that can really delay care. For example, I had a patient the other day, they did not speak a lick of English, and I was just trying to tell them that their COVID test was negative. And it probably took 15 extra minutes because I had to call the phone interpreter just to tell this family that their COVID was negative. And so BMC really hits on the point of just kind of accepting all people. And one thing I really love about BMC is we kind of have a safe policy where a don't tell policy. So sometimes we'll get illegal immigrants or we'll get kids that were in ICE custody. And one thing that BMC really emphasis on is we want patients to come to us and feel safe and feel that we're not going to call the police on them or that we're not going to get them in more trouble. And so a lot of times we do take families that have no health insurance. And so I think that is really huge. And I think we see a lot of different patient population than you would otherwise. And also BMC really incorporate a reading program with all kids. So any kids that comes into our hospital, they automatically get 2 books just because, as you saw in the video, it's really important to start early education. And then secondly, being in a big city, addiction is huge. And we see it in a lot of our patients under the age of 23, which is really sad and unfortunate. And a lot of our patients are in DCF custody. And that is something that I had no experience with. And also being in a big city right outside our hospital is a methadone clinic, and it's actually really sad. On your way into work, you oftentimes see a lot of people shooting up, and that was the first time I'd ever seen it when I moved here. And so we deal with a lot of that, and a lot of them are young and some are old, and so we deal with figuring out how to treat someone but also not make them a drug addict in the future. And so what does a pediatric nurse do? So for basics, we give medication and we do blood transfusions. Blood transfusions are huge in our hospital because we have a wide population of sickle cell patients, which I will get into in a little bit. But we give medications, and that sounds so easy, but it's not easy. When you're trying to give a 3-year-old Tylenol and they're fighting you and they're screaming and the parents aren't really helpful, it can be a task. And sometimes you have to full on hold the kid down just to give them Tylenol. So that's why I say sometimes the parents are helpful and sometimes they're not. Secondly, we assess patients. We do a head-to-toe assessment, and we do this frequently. And I think this is really important because a lot of the times the doctors aren't there with their patients. The way it works at our hospitals is we'll round together in the morning. But other than that, the doctors don't really see our patients again. And we're the ones that are bringing all the information to the doctors. Or if there's a change in status, we're the ones that know about it first. And then we notify the doctors to either come see our patient. So I think that's really huge, is we assess our patients all the time. We're with our patients all the time. And then second, we advocate for our patients. And this is really, really, really big. And sometimes this is hard because a doctor will say one thing and you're saying the other. And really, you know your patients really well. And so we advocate for them and we express their needs, because sometimes patients can't. And it's scary when you have a full team of doctors coming in and you're trying to express and advocate for yourself. So as nurses, we really advocate for our patients. Also, we diagnose. This mostly happens if you're in the ER or if you're doing triage, not so much on the floor. But as nurses, sometimes we do diagnose. And then also we give immunizations. This is really important. And during COVID, when our pediatric floor closed down, BMC really made it a part of their mission to make sure that kids could still keep up on their vaccinations. And so we had a van in front of the hospital where parents could come and take their kids, so that way they weren't missing any of their vaccinations due to COVID. Also, we provide comfort. So being in the hospital is scary, especially when you're a young kid and you don't understand. Like 2- and 3-year-olds are so hard to deal with. They just have no idea. They're scared of everything. They just cry. So a lot of the times as a nurse is we're providing comfort. We're trying to make the stay as easy as possible for these patients. And then going back, we do relay critical information to the care team. Like I said, the nurse is at the bedside with the patient most of the day, is where the care team might be there once a day. And so really it's on the nurse to relay everything to the doctor and kind of really help the doctor like guide their plan of care. And last, we have fun. And that's what I love about being a pediatric nurse, is we have a lot of fun. We get a color. Our playroom is not open right now currently due to COVID, but we still have a lot of fun. We do therapy dogs, and then we're gonna do trick-or-treating this year in their room, which is not as fun as going to the different units, but we really try to have a lot of fun as a pediatric nurse. And then lastly, what are the roles and jobs available as a pediatric nurse? I think when I was your guys' age, I didn't realize how many different opportunities there were in nursing. And I think that's why I ended up choosing PA and not realizing like what all my opportunities were. But as a nurse at BMC, you could work in our adolescent clinic if you wanted to. And this is like your 8 to 5, Monday through Friday doctor's office. And our adolescent clinic is very unique as it is really big in transgender. And we're a huge hospital in transitioning people from male to female or female to male. And so I think that is a really unique thing about our hospital, and probably not that a lot of hospitals do. So that's kind of our adolescent clinic. They see all of those patients. And then also you can work in the emergency department, which is where I am currently working. And then also as a pediatric nurse, you are required sometimes to go to the mother-baby unit or the NICU. And I worked in the NICU too during COVID. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind, because I always thought pediatrics would just be kids, but it's really not. It's babies, it's NICU, it's the full scope of things. And then also on our floor, we do really collaborate with the ear, nose, and throat doctors a lot. We do a lot of Lefort surgeries, which is like reconstructive jaw surgery. And so we work with those doctors very, very, very closely. And then we also work with the Center for Unexpected Infant and Child Death. And as a pediatric nurse, you're all required to go to a bereavement conference and to really learn what to do in the times of when a family might be losing their child. And something we incorporated at BMC recently is something called a cuddle cot. Now, if you guys don't know what it is, you should look it up. And I think it's very interesting because the cuddle cots actually are really big in Europe. And they're not so big here in the United States, and they're becoming more and more of a thing here. But in our hospital, we only have one. And what a cuddle cot does is, let's say a child dies or an infant dies, the cuddle cot kind of preserves their body for a couple more days, because who is it to say that, oh, you only have 2 days to say bye to your dying child? Like, that's not really fair to say, but also you can't have a patient stay in the hospital for a month while they try to say bye to their child. And so the cuddle cot is really good for those first couple of days when the family is still mourning and needs some time to say bye to the child. And so it kind of preserves the body, but also lets the baby be at the bedside with the parents. And then we also have a huge hematology department at BMC, and we do see a lot of sickle cell kids. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with sickle cell, but sickle cell is normally your red blood cells are nice, cute, and circular. But with sickle cell, they become crescent shaped. So it's like a crescent moon. And this is normally seen in African Americans, Asians, so with hematology or with their sickle cell, we see these kids a lot. And with them also comes, you have your sickle cell crisis, which puts these kids in a lot of pain, and they're normally admitted for their pain. And so with that comes, like I said, the addiction is huge in Boston, Massachusetts. And so there's a fine line of treating the sickle cell crisis pain, and then also not over treating it to where we create someone that might become a drug addict. And so our hematology department is really, really, really huge. We page them all the time, we consult them all the time, and so they are amazing. And then also for nursing, you can be involved in neurology. So we do see a lot of kids here for seizures, and we do a lot of long-term monitoring. So that is another option. And then also at BMC, what's really huge is our pain clinic. And our pain clinic really goes with hematology. And I think there's a really fine line in treating pain and then treating anxiety and other stressors through pain medication. And so sometimes it's really hard as a nurse when you're advocating for your patient who might be in sickle cell crisis, who says they're in 10 out of 10 pain, but yet they can walk up and down the hall, but yet when you're talking to them, they're so drugged out that they're falling asleep. And so our pain clinic does a really good idea of helping these individuals to maybe treat, are they saying they're in 10 out of 10 pain because they're anxious about the pain that's to come, or are they really in 10 out of 10 pain? So our pain clinic is amazing in really helping kids identify stressors and other means to cope with pain. And I think that is really big and huge and important in the time that we are in, especially in the opioid epidemic that we are in. So I will share a video of our pain clinic and what that does, because we work very, very closely with them.
Hey, Brooke, turn up your volume on your computer. Gotcha, cool.
Okay. So I really like to share the video of our pain clinic because it is super, super big in our hospital and our day-to-day care that we provide our patients. So our pediatric inpatient is on the 5th floor, the pain clinic is on the 6th floor. So a lot of our times our patients that have sickle cell or are there for pain, we will send them up to the pain clinic for the day and have them come back because we feel like our patients really do gain a lot from the pain clinic. And I think what I realized as being a nurse is a lot of kids that do have addiction properties to them or are addicted to certain medications, it's normally because they have had maybe some trauma in their life and they don't know how to deal with the stressors of day-to-day life, or they don't know how to deal with anxiety. And so they refer to pain medications because pain medications numb you. So I think that's really huge in trying to walk the fine line of treating pain, but also making sure that we're not creating our next drug addict on the street. And sometimes it's really hard. I'll never forget, we had a sickle cell kid and I walked in his room and he is literally on the phone selling his pain medication, and that's not okay. And so that's something where you really have to intervene and think, why is this kid doing this? Why is that kid walking down that path? And he just really wasn't in a good place. And so I feel like our pain clinic does a really, really good job of handling those issues, especially because in the big city, it's sad. I've seen someone as young as 8 years old do crack cocaine. And so it's really, really, really sad to kind of deal with pain and then deal with the addiction property of it. And with sickle cell, you do treat it with pain medication. And so I think that's one of the hardest things that we deal with at BMC is just treating actual pain versus giving pain medications to treat anxiety and stressors. And so that I think is really huge and special and unique to us. And also we do get a lot of kids with gunshot wounds. And so all of our kids with gunshot wounds will go to the pain clinic after, because also we don't want to, after gunshot, obviously the kid is in PTSD, really traumatic, but we also don't want to treat them by just giving them anxiety medication or pain medications to get them through. And so a lot of the times they will see so many of these integrative services to kind of help treat the underlying issue. And then secondly, I thought I would share my experience with COVID-19. So I got hired at BMC on March 23rd. I worked in the NICU for a month, and then I got switched to adult COVID. And so this picture here on the left was me and my preceptor and all of our gear. So you have to wear a gown, an N95, mask, hairnet, shield, and it is awful. You sweat. We had nurses passing out left and right. I swear we had new gowns every week. Some were black, some were pink and like shower curtain material. And so that is kind of what the full get up looks like when you go into a patient's room with COVID-19. And we were really only trying to go into the rooms every 4 hours to really like minimize exposure to it. And then also when COVID-19 happened, since it is mostly affecting adults, our whole entire pediatric floor closed down. And so our 30 beds went to adult med-surg, and all of our pediatric nurses had to start caring for adults. For me, that wasn't necessarily a big problem because I was fresh out of school, but some of our pediatric nurses have been pediatric nurses for 35, 40 years, so they have not taken an adult since way back when. And so one of our pediatric nurses actually made this meme on the bottom: when pediatric nurses work in a COVID unit. And I thought that was funny because that's how it felt. We stuck out. We're just so different. We're really bright and bubbly, and I guess we like coddle people. And so everyone would always say, if we get sick, we want to go to the pediatric unit because we're just so different than the adult units. And I also liked this little meme on the top too that says, we have a peds cardiology fellow redeployed in our COVID-19 ICU. The fellow called proning tummy time on rounds today. I may never call it proning again. I think that's super funny and very true, because as pediatric nurses, we really do kind of bring the medical terminology down to very minimal base levels for the kids to understand and for our parents to understand. And then the picture on the right just shows me and the other new grad that was hired together. And this was right before we switched back to getting our pediatric floor back. And I really like this picture because you can kind of see the red box by me at the bottom. And what happened is we were so short on supplies that our N95s at the end of the day, you would put in the box and someone would sanitize them for you. And so pretty much a week later, you were using someone's like N95 that had been re-sanitized, which is really gross. So a lot of times we would just keep our N95s because it'd be better to use your same one than to get someone else's sanitized one. And so I really like these pictures because I feel like it just kind of explains the time that we're in. And at our hospital right now, we used to be a 30-bed pediatric unit, and now we're only down to 12 because our other half of our unit is for adult COVID or adult med-surg, and we won't get our full unit back until March to May. And so that's why I was reassigned to the PDED. So this is now my 4th reassignment. And I think that's really important to keep in mind too, when you choose what you want to do. You know, at the end of the day, I want to be a pediatric nurse. I love kids, but also at the end of the day, I'm a nurse because I'm there to take care of people. And that doesn't always mean that I'm going to get the specialty that I want. And so you really have to think about that. Like, what are you in there for? And during COVID, it was so hard to care for these people. You know, it was absolutely devastating. It was depressing. You were isolated, and then you were coming to work and you were working long hours, and it was just awful. And so I think it was really like a moment that showed to me, like, I'm not a nurse just because I want to care for kids and I like kids. It's because I truly want to make a difference in people's lives. And then lastly, I really like this picture. One of the doctors on the floor that we worked in, her husband and family made us all these shirts that say resilience. And I really think this is like the word of the year, because this year has been so tough, and it really does take resilience to push through each and every day. And it really is still unknown. We have no idea what's going to happen in the upcoming months. We're expecting a surge, and we're starting to surge here again, but we really don't know what's going to happen. And so I think at the end of the day, it's really important to keep a positive attitude and just to really like support one another. And I could have never done adult COVID without these people that you see here on the right. Being a new grad, it was absolutely awful for how many patients we lost. And I never thought that we would lose patients that early. And my nurse preceptor, who's been a nurse for 40 years, said that she's never lost as many patients in that time as we did during COVID. And so it really has just been a super hard time throughout our hospital. Everyone's been stressed, everyone's been worried, but really I think I work with some of the best people, and we all support each other. And so yeah, so that is kind of pediatric nursing in a scope and COVID-19 and kind of my journey. So I hope that wasn't rambling, but if any of you guys have questions, you can email them to Mr. Shurup, and then I could put them in like a PowerPoint or whatever and answer them back so everyone could see them. But thank you so much, guys.
Great job. Yeah, I will have a place at the end of the video that they can type in, and I will send them to you, any of those questions. And so,
Okay.
and I guess you could say the funny thing. Yeah, the kids can always come and shadow you because they're not going to get out to Boston.
Yes, if anyone wants to come shadow, come on up.